Шановні колеги,
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We start the briefing devoted to pension reform, and we are going to speak about what will win, rational ideas or populism. And I give the floor to the experts. Good afternoon. I'm Mariana Anufrik. I am social policy expert, Institute for Social and Economic Research. And we want to tell you about pension reform. Why this topic is important? Because pension reform, according to the legislation 2013, it is carried out for 13 years, and it was envisaged that our system of pensions should be of free level, solidary, obligatory, and non-obligatory level. But despite economic collapses and changes of government and presidents, we didn't have political will in order to carry out this reform. Speaking about the government after Maidan, so the arguments that this pension reform should be made in the form it was envisaged, these provisions are provided in the coalition agreement and also in the documents of the cabinet of ministers headed by Yatsenyuk. President of Ukraine, in his address to the Supreme Council, stressed that this is one of the priorities. And at the same day, he adopted the plan to carry out reforms, the plan of Groisman, and it was envisaged on reforms of pension, solidary level, and accumulation level. So this is one of the structural components in the memorandum of Ukraine with the International Monetary Fund, and we are speaking about pension reform as a priority reform for 2016, and now also we don't have the text until today, and also other top officials, the Minister of Finance, Daniluk, and Pavel Rezenko, and Minister of Social Justice, Mr. Reva, we hear that pension reform is very important and acute problem and needs our attention. But it happens so that all these politicians, they understand the reform in a different way. So the big plus is this, that reform is a priority, but we should understand where we are going to. Whether we go to Europe, where all three levels are present, or we move back to the Soviet Union, where we would have a solidary level only. So this problem was present in the media because there were different opinions by Rezenko and the Minister of Social Policy Reva. These positions are different, and there were some so there is a draft law 4608 that was introduced, and it resolves many problems. It replaces the draft law of Yatsenyuk government. We had several comments to this draft law, so we supported in the first reading, but this draft law is better than the previous one, but there are many issues that are raised amid this, and for the next time we came here in order to provide our position and to tell you where we should move and what our pension system should be. Here in this picture you can see in this humorous form average pension in countries of the world and the level of pension funds. So I would like to say that European level of pensions and leading countries of the world. It is possible only where European mechanisms and systems of pensions will be introduced. I would like to give the floor to the next speaker that would go in more details what will going on or will not going on if the words of the social policy minister Reva will become reality. Thank you. Iliana Sadowski, Director of the Institute of Social and Economic Transformation, Senior Expert of Tax Reform, Reanimation Package of Reforms. So I'm going to tell you about the address of the Minister of about the increase of single-time single social contribution. So it was reduced from 41% till 22%, and this is the only way that decreased the load on the salaries. So this fund, pension fund, needs contribution, and it happens. So there are many objective things, but for the long time, taxation of the salary was one of the highest in the world. To pay 1 hryvnia of the salary, they should pay 70 kopecks to social and pension funds. That led to the situation that entrepreneurs tried to find a way to minimize this payment. And as a result, 50% or more, according to some estimates of salaries, they were paid in envelopes. And one of the main reasons is the high level of single social contribution. We provided information to the International Monetary Fund, and they agreed that the load on the salary is one of the highest in the world, and it leads to the shadowing of these salaries and bad influence on the economy. And this was one of the moments in the memorandum of International Monetary Fund to decrease this load on salary. And this process was, they used some coefficient, and because there was a sabotage and non-professional professionalism of the Cabinet of Ministers, this mechanism was not introduced timely. There was a half-year gap. They didn't provide explanations, and there were some obstacles. But entrepreneurs used the mechanism, and from the 1st of January 2016, they used the coefficient of single social contribution, 22%. And according to the results of the first quarter, there is a conclusion that there are less money that go in envelopes. So it's difficult to analyze the situation only viewing only this quarter. We may say that these results can be achieved only at the end of the year. So we may say that there is some positive trends, and the salaries rise, but not at that rate that was expected. 40% of salaries of budget sphere and state enterprises. So there is no, the salaries are frozen in these spheres, and this distorts the statistics. And also there is one more thing about the single social contribution, is that there should be trust. In case government said that it decreases single social contribution, they should establish minimum, and the increase in single social contribution will lead to a catastrophe, and it will reduce significantly the money that go to pension fund, because this money, they will be given to the workers in the envelopes, not through the system, and that will be negative impact, and there will be deficit of pension funds that will rise many times. So this is from me, and now I give the floor to my colleague.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Vitaly Melnichuk, chief expert in the pension pension reform group of experts. First, I would like to speak on the law number 4608, which entered the parliament. It has a very long name, but it resolves 4 major issues. As first, pay as you go system. There will be single method of calculating pensions for all categories of populations, depending on the salaries of people and depending on the service term. The second novelty is the mandatory accumulative pension system. The idea will be that all citizens will pay between 2 and then more and more percent from the income which will be accumulated on their accounts. Then professional pensional system. The sense is that some employees work in harmful conditions and conditions that are harmful for health. So today they go to early pensions, and the employers pay between 7 and 18%, but currently this goes to general pension fund, while this will be personified and at the personal accounts of those employees. And there will be a private system of pension provisions which would allow people to accumulate their own pension provision. And there might be private pension funds, there may be state pension fund, but which is voluntary for people. And now the question is why there is such a big resistance to this new system. Mariana described that the law about new pension reform was passed long ago, 14 years ago. But not so considerable changes had happened. There is a deep question, an important question behind the pension reform. In each state, there are systems in place which carry out some functions like educational, transportation, pension, and etc. We inherited the Soviet pension system, and it was a clear approach, very simple approach that people pay now, and their pension contributions, and these pension contributions are immediately paid to those pensioners which exist now. And some ministers keep saying that we should improve this system. It could not be improved, not because this is a purely Soviet system, but it could not be improved because of the demographic situation. And the demography suggests that the amount of people who work today remain and pays pensions to yesterday's employees. It remains the same all the time, while that's not true. The amount of working people is dropping down. In 2008, there was a special World Bank report devoted to this issue. That report had been being developed for 3 years. They reviewed almost all global pension systems, and they came to conclusion that when you have pay-as-you-go system, the issue of decent pensions paid to pensioners could not be resolved. So they suggested to take another approach to change the system. When we lived in the Soviet Union, and we followed the right path, but this was the right path to the deadlock. And with this pay-as-you-go system, you are following very good path, but you are going to nowhere. And back in 1994, we suggested 3-level pension system. We tried to diversify the sources of pension. Moreover, this would allow to launch the additional source of money in the economy. In Poland, 380 euros is today's pension in Poland. In Ukraine, we have 76 dollars pension. Poland started its pension reform the same year as Ukraine. They have finished their pension reform and they develop, while we are going right way, but to nowhere. I'm Krychkova Galina. I'm an expert in the reanimation package of reform expert. I would like to sum up and add some things which were not mentioned by my colleagues. This is about communication between civil society and newly formed government. Of course, this government communicates more. The Prime Minister inform us what he had done during a day. But we would like to have a dialogue and to have the sustainable dialogue. Within more than 18 months, we had been being developing the pension reform for the benefits of each citizen and for the benefits of the economy of Ukraine. That's why we request from the government, please be consistent in your actions and your decisions. What Mariana mentioned about past laws, resolutions, action plans, etc. All that decisions were made as steps to the 3 pension sources for each person. We are going to have state pension, mandatory tax payments made by people, accumulated by people, and private pension accumulations, pension savings. So we would request to the MPs to review 4608 draft law and to United 46081 draft law. By the is offered by Ms. Denisova. Civil servants have had specificity in payment of their social contributions were higher, so the civil servants have to get higher pensions. RPR suggested to correlate paid pensions with the paid contributions. Reform should be direct, says the Minister of Social Provision today. And today's pensioners should get pensions in line with this approach, while we do not do this actually. We state this, but we do not do it. We also have the problem of the state budget. From economic point of view, it does not matter how the pension fund would be accumulated. Pensioners should understand that the pension fund is formed on the amount of the state budget. Today, we decreased the single social contribution. We try to change proportion in the state budget between payments, various payments. We try to balance them with the commitments, social commitments that Ukraine undertook in line with its international obligations. The draft law number 4608 has no conflict with the IMF requirements. When we will establish just approach between the state and the person, and the government wishes to take responsibility for accumulated savings. Ukrainians know what Ukrainians are smart enough to be able to manage the household incomes, and let us decrease some taxes to allow people to accumulate savings for the pension. The state has to introduce the security system. 4608 draft law offers this insurance system securing how the state should guarantee the payment of accumulated savings plus inflation. That is, the system of security insurance could be different, but it should be in place. The Ministry of Social Policy keeps saying that no.
Є неправдою. Якщо ми подивимося на реформу фінансового сектору, я вже сказала, що і в РПРі, і в
In RPR and in the National Council of Reforms, people think how to control our financial institutions like non-government pension funds, insurance companies. It forces them to comply with their commitments to people. So we request from the government to take their commitments, and we need to have that percentage, that several percent of money in state budget to secure the savings of people, pension savings of people in line with the new legislation. Now questions.
Good afternoon, Senator Dmitronian, Informa Agency. And a question to Galina. When we are speaking about the raise of age of pensioners because of the deficit of the pension fund, what about that? The arithmetic says that if we believe that pension fund is some sort of unit of social policy ministry, and it declares that this is their fund that is filled by the tax in such a way when these pension funds are filled only with a single social contribution, it shows that in order to provide 275 billion, and there will be 600 billion this year, in order to form 275 billion obligation before our pensioners. So we should decrease the obligations and to increase the age and to pay less. But the minister said that the average age of men is 49 years. And in the United States, the air traffic controllers become pensioners at 67. So we do not, they do not provide pension at the age of 49. And women, they become pensioners at 55, but we have the statistics 49 and 55. So we should be, and we see that the whole community collects money for the pension that is provided in accordance with age. So we do not have such a category that some amortization of the organism. So we should balance the arithmetic first in order to be just and fair. If, for example, everyone go to pension at 60, for example, and if you contributed, less, you will get less. So Constitution says, Article 46, if other means do not provide people with minimum profit, the state should guarantee this through the budget. So 35 billion of pension fund is bringing the people up to the minimum standard of living. So that should be provided by the state. And also there is a problem of decrease the percentage of taxes on employers and employees. So it doesn't matter whether it is single social contribution or other taxes. It should be reduced in order that economy rise, and only if we will have rise, we will get proper pensions and contributions to the pension fund. So we exhausted many means, but for example, men, they become pensioners at 60, and I would like to stress about 5% of accumulation that are envisaged by law 4608. The matter is, We paid a single social contribution to the pension fund, and we do not pay it to the fund from 1st of January 2016. We will send this money to to the pension funds that do not belong to state. So this shouldn't be additional function of the state because it requires expenses. We want to save our money the way we want it. So there is a discussion not about pension reform as it is, because no one against it. But the matter is who is going to manage these funds. So this communication with society, you should name the things by their own name, because we discussed this topic for tens of years, and it is very comfortable to manipulate with this. This is a balance between state and our property, and we want part of these taxes that we paid, we want to get them in our ownership. And this is some sort of socialism. And we should provide opportunity to Ukrainians to become rich and prosperous. So it is directed that person should understand that his personal responsibility, but latent communists, they should leave, and those who got lost in time and they believe that it was tens of years ago, they just got lost. The time changes and we have decommunization processes now. So now the official part of briefing is over. If you want to speak further, please do it off records. Thank you.